do not want to be seen, just hide your video feed. Welcome everybody to our first of hopefully 9 meetings on practical object-oriented design in Ruby by Sandy Metz. This week we're covering chapter 1, which is just called Object-Oriented Design. Did everybody get a chance to read it before we started?
Yes.
Good. Anybody not? Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to open it up to thoughts on it in general and just kind of steer the conversation from there. Is there anybody who has anything they want to say about it to start? Mary? Kate? Catherine? Mary Catherine? Sorry.
Let's see. I mean, I thought can't put me on the spot. I don't know. I mean, I've read it. Also, I guess because I haven't been doing that much programming, it doesn't seem or like that much like hard programming. I don't know. It doesn't seem like super applicable yet.
Right.
And it is the kind of like.
So, are you new to how far into programming are you now, as far as like what you've been doing, Rails and stuff?
I mean, I'm still doing like, so I'm day to day. I'm trying to get more into Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and so I'm doing like the Ruby Monday project with a couple of you guys that are here right now, and then Hartle's tutorials, but I haven't even gotten all the way through there, so that's kind of pretty basic level.
Well, one of the things
stuff on my own, so I'm doing kind of tutorials.
I may be cutting you guys off. I'm having connection issues. If I drop off for some reason, Mary Catherine, can you restart it with your account and do the recording and stuff? Because I'm getting a delay from you guys.
Yeah, I think my audio might be dropping out too.
Okay.
Actually.
What about you, Farish? Have you got good audio and video?
Sorry.
Hi, it's, I don't know, you guys tell me. I hear audio fine. I don't know how it records. So,
okay.
Is there a way for me to take over broadcasting?
I don't know. I guess if we had to, we could drop off and have you restart the. It's just Google on Air, and if you have you can file your YouTube account, it'll let you start one, and we can post the link in the chat. Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys.
No problem.
I think there's a way. I'm trying to see if there's a way for you to give control.
Let me look at the controller. Yeah, all right, I'm sharing controls with you. Do you see controls now?
It doesn't let me record though. Let's just kick it or mute people or turn off their camera.
Okay.
We see the Hangout toolbox.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any way to. I saw that I could pass controls to you, but I don't see how to actually change past the entire thing to you, because it made me sign like do you consent to whatever, and it may not let me pass it
Well, I could.
I got
We
a
can
request for
restart.
permission.
We can restart if you want, and I can start the Hangout. How did you do the on air? Because I've never really done a Hangout. Do you have to do that from YouTube?
Yeah, if you just Google on air Hangouts, it's the first link and it walks you through it real quick.
Okay, I'll copy the link. Do you want to do that? You tell me.
Yeah, go ahead and do that because I'm afraid that this recording. I'm okay. Well, let's go ahead and keep going, and then if we drop out, then we'll do that because right now
Okay.
I'm getting good audio. Okay, I'm sorry, Mary Catherine. You were saying that you've been getting started on Ruby and Rails. How much? I was curious. There's a part in there at the end of the chapter where she talks about the difference between procedural and object-oriented languages. How far have you gotten with Ruby to where you're seeing the differences there?
Or with anybody.
Hello? I don't think Mary Catherine can hear us.
Sorry, just kind of dropping out a little bit.
Yeah, I was just saying. Hello, Alexandra. Yeah, okay. All right. I was just saying, let's just go over the book, the sections of the chapter. Did anyone have anything they wanted to say about the first section on why design is important, and if they've run into any issues with the problems of design and why design is so important to making changes in code?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Is this working?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Well, I consider myself kind of a newbie, and yeah, I think it does a good job of kind of like communicating clearly what you need to know. Because I mean, even as a newbie, it's like you don't know what you don't know, and she talks about how design is important in anticipating future changes and maintaining code throughout its lifespan. So, like, that's not something I would think about because until then I've been making these like tic-tac-toe apps and like hello world, very simple things. And she kind of communicates how like a code base really has a lifespan and it's going to be interacted with several people. And so design has its role in making that as easy as possible. So that was.
Hi, Jesus.
I
Jesus, did you have a chance to read the first chapter of the book?
no, I don't even have the book.
Ah, well, I could give you a quick summary of what she went over in it. The first chapter is just on object-oriented design, and so she gives the arguments for why design is important, and the fundamental reasons for why, and the goal of design, which is basically to make code that doesn't try to predict what the future is going to be, but tries to deal with the fact that change is inevitable in code bases, and to make code as friendly to change as possible. So she talks about not anticipating a particular change, not over anticipating what your code's going to have to do, but writing code in such a way that it's adaptable. And so she didn't get into a lot of detail on how that happens in the first chapter. She just gave the overview of why that's an important thing to have in your code base. She gave a little bit of history in there. She talked about the idea of big design up front, which is or big upfront design, which is an acronym I'd never heard before, which I'd always heard it as waterfall, which I don't know if that's something that they talk about in the code schools. But waterfall is the idea that you have, it's kind of, I think the best example I've seen of waterfall in going badly in our lifetime, or in our generation, is with the ACA, Affordable Care Act's website to sign up. I mean, that was a notoriously famous screw up, and that was because, you know, of the constraints that are put on development through the rules of the bidding process and how everything has to be bid on and set up front. And that was something that had been talked about in a lot of the media. And I mean, not all big upfront designs are going to go that, you know, badly, of course, but that was a particularly famous example that we've seen recently. And she didn't talk. She talked about how Agile plays into all of this, and like how Agile is the approach to the actual design process that this book endorses and tries to give actual code principles. I mean, of course, Agile is how you plan the upfront, you know, development process. And this book is taking those same principles and ideas and trying to implement them in the code base itself. So, did anybody have, like, was there anything anyone wanted to say about the first chapter? I know it's pretty much set up, so there's not going to be a lot there that we weren't sure about. But did anybody have any questions about what they thought of, or questions about what she talked about in the first chapter?
I had time to mute myself. Basically, it's kind of foundational, and this is the concept she kind of gives you. It's a guideline, or you would say rules to live by. As you look at this towards the future, when we go into specifics of the rules, I'm getting weird feedback.
Yeah, I got a little bit too.
Basically, when she goes through the rules that we deal with in later chapters, you'll see she's kind of saying, do this, and one of the reasons why she said this, going back to what you said about change, is that when you make one change, you can create a series of unfortunate events, and after that series of unfortunate events, you can break the application. So if you simplify things, move certain methods into other sections for their own class, you might make it less likely to break when you do make major changes to your application or upgrades or additional features.
Okay. Do you know, as far as, like, so let's talk a little bit about, like, the place this book plays in the Ruby community. It's kind of, I mean, a lot of people see it as like a Ruby Bible, as I understand it. And it seems like I've never heard anyone who had anything bad to say about the role this book has in among Rubyists. It's just really considered an important book. And I know I've heard a couple of interviews with Sandy Metz where she talks about specific rules that she's given that were inspired by some of the things she did when writing this book. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those play out.
Well, let's. Do you want to go over the rules real quick?
Sure, we can do that. Do you have a link?
Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Let me get this page ready, and we'll go over the basics of these rules. Let me. Okay, taking it over. And now, can you see that? Let me make it bigger for you guys. Okay, so let's go over her rules, which is what this book is basically about for developers. First rule is, Well, here are the 4 rules. Classes can be no longer than 100 lines of code. Methods can be no longer than 5 lines of code. Pass no more than 4 parameters into a method. Hash options are parameters. Controllers can instantiate only one object. Therefore, views can only know about one instance variable, and views should only send messages to that object. And part of the idea of this, as you can see, is to kind of keep it simple, keep it short, and if you look like you're breaking any of those rules, maybe you need to put those methods or in another class or make another method, etc., etc., etc.
So I actually listened to, a while back, I listened to the podcast episode of Ruby Rogues where she first introduced those rules. And I remember at the time she said she was hesitant to have rules like this, that she wanted people to be more nuanced about it, but that she had gotten put pressure to give rules. And so these were the rules that she gave. So that's, I'm curious to see how specific she gets with those rules in the book, to see if that's something that she, like, I mean, I could imagine her saying, you know, class objects shouldn't be more than 100 lines of code. I'm curious to see what she says about, I'm curious to see what she says about the actual, like, for example, the methods not being longer than 5 lines of code and all that stuff itself. I know when I was first learning, when I first got far enough into Ruby where I was actually starting to use classes and things like that, and not just writing things in you know, it's a big jumble, I was given the rules, methods no longer than 10 lines of code, with 5 as an ideal. And I think that was just because when you first start out, it's really hard to write a method with 5 lines of code. Or at least that's my experience. Sometimes you really have trouble getting, you know, because I mean, that means that's an if with no else. That's like, you know, case statements are basically out. It really limits your options when you're first learning Ruby, and when those are going to be a lot of the tools that you rely on. So I was wondering if anyone had any experience trying to implement those rules in their own code bases.
Hey, Clayton, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
There's just someone on the Slack channel that just wants to join in. Is there a limit on how many people we can have in here in the Google Hangout? He just says it's full and he's trying to join.
Looks like we just hit our limit. Let me share a link. Hang on just a minute. Let me get the link up.
Well, while you're looking for the link, you know, some of this we can apply on our Ruby Monday project, because if you look at some of these rules, including the one that talks about controllers can instantiate only one object, I'm pretty sure we broke that rule in our controllers for Ruby Monday.
Yeah, we did, actually. You and I were the ones that wrote that particular
Right.
Controller, and it was for the tags in the post. I was going to mention that that was a rule we had already broken in our base code, and I was wondering if you had any suggestions on what we might do to improve that.
Well, we're going to have to learn, because right now,
and for those who don't know, what we're talking about, the Ruby Monday group has a blog that they've been building on Rails in the Ruby Monday Slack channel. If you want to go in there and look at code base on that, and I could post a link to the GitHub. But one of the things that we have is our posts have tags, and when you instantiate our posts, object and controllers, it also instantiates a tag as an instance variable. All the tags, or the list of tags is an instance variable, all the tag objects. So we apparently are breaking her rules already. I just posted to GitHub. I didn't even post it right.
I think
Somebody else posts that.
with her rules,
I better not be opening too many things at once right now. Can you guys hear
so
me
I think,
okay?
have you guys listened to Sandy Metz's Code Newbie? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Have you listened to the Sandy Metz interview on the Code Newbies podcast? It's like a 2-part podcast.
That was a really good interview.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And she kind of says, you know, for a lot of people that are just starting out, read my book, and I feel like those kind of rules like that, where she says like 5 lines of code, like you were saying you had 10 when you first started out. Like, I think that's probably something to work towards, as opposed to starting right off the bat, you know, writing like perfect code, because obviously you're not gonna be able to do that. So, I mean, I'm still relatively new, but I think I've like learned enough where this stuff makes sense. I just like haven't had a chance to apply it yet. But I think I really like the idea, as she says, you know, like the whole point of it is just like designing for the future, which I think is really, really awesome, and also like really sounds very intimidating and very hard to do. So I'm like excited to learn how I can do. I mean, I'm assuming the rest of the book is just going to tell us how to do that. But yeah, also for someone who like has never knowingly worked with object-oriented anything before, it was nice to kind of get like the parts where the objects interactions are embodied in messages that pass between them, and that like opened up a lot to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things she talked about with Ruby is the fact that like a string, Ruby sort of has data types. Like we have strings and we have integers and stuff like that, but they're all instantiated through objects. And so the data and the things that the data, the how did she describe it? The data and the hang on just a second. The behavior and the data are not separate in Ruby, because like every object's going to have methods. The methods are the behavior, and then you're also going to have data that gets passed in, and you may have data that gets created or destroyed inside of the object. So it's I've never worked with anything other than Ruby, so I'm not used to. It never even occurred to me that there might be languages where data and behavior were kept apart like that.
Yeah, definitely, and it definitely helps because like I'm more of a visual person, so it definitely helps to kind of visualize your code as something other than just lines on a screen, as like actually interacting and behaving, kind of properties of their own in kind of a like discrete, you know, space, and then basically what you're doing is just making sure that they can talk to each other properly, and like that like really helped me conceptualize what it is, kind of how you could make it future-proof in that sense.
Right.
But I thought that was like is that, I mean, is anybody else like visual like that where that might have helped? Or, I mean, how did Ruby make sense for you guys?
That's all I know. So.
I'm still trying to make sense.
Is there anyone here who has experience with a non-OO language?
Pardon?
mode. I'm going to take that as a no.
What's the question?
Sulu, did you have something to say?
No, I just missed your question. I didn't hear it. So.
I asked if there was anyone here who had experience with a non-object-oriented language.
Okay.
I have done some C.
C.
Yes.
How do they deal with well, you didn't get to read the first chapter, so let me see if there's any so is C one of those languages where behavior and the actual data that the behavior is acting on are kept separate?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
Well, you just have functions and you pass the data in with parameters.
Okay. I almost want to look at some C code now just to see if I can make any heads or tails of it and see how it does it differently. So one of the things she warned against in the first chapter is over-designing. So like taking the principles of like, well, I think she gave a couple examples. One was when you use patterns. When you first start using patterns, you see them as you see everything as an opportunity to use your favorite, one or two patterns, and how it makes your code actually less malleable because you've forced your code into a pattern that it doesn't really fit into. I am not very experienced with patterns yet. I've just barely been exposed to them. But I know that Ruby has a lot of them. And I know that, for example, the entire way Rails is structured around a popular set of patterns discussed in enterprise applications book that DHH is really heavily influenced by. I haven't read that book. I know it's one of those ones I want to get around to someday. I like the whole idea of active record and all that stuff is built around the whole pattern system. And that's one reason why people talk about Rails being so opinionated, is they have trouble. Rails loves it if you try to do things this way, but if you go outside of the Rails preferred way, a lot of times Rails will fight with you on it. That's just what I've heard. I don't have enough experience with Rails to have had that happen to me personally, but I know I've heard that from people.
Can we talk more about, I guess, going back to the rules, because I'm still trying to, I guess, understand. One of them was that a controller only has access to one variable. Is that what is something like that? I have
hang on, let me bring it.
I have our implementation here for post controller. Maybe we can try to make sense of the rule and compare it to our implementation, just to kind of orient ourselves with, I guess, what the rule is and how it looks like to actual code that our project has worked on.
Okay, so let's go over the rule one more time. The actual rule is controllers can instantiate only one object. Therefore, views can only know about one instance variable, and views should only send messages to that object.
Okay.
So, and it says objects.collaborator.value is not allowed, which I think, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Then, so okay, what that means is if you look there in the new and in the show, new, I'm not sure how that would work, because you're going to have post and tag for new. But in the show, it instantiates from the database an instance variable of post and an instance variable of tags, and tags is just post.tags. So I don't know if that breaks the rule or not. Does anybody?
Because if you look at here, tags is set from the post variable. Would it
Right.
be if the view just took the tags off the post variable anyway? Would that take away from the controller, or what do you guys think? I don't know.
Jesus, you know more about this than we do. Do you think that's a violation of the rule or not?
I think it is.
What would be a better way to go about doing that then?
Maybe using presenters. Is anyone familiar with presenters? I can. So presenters is just a class where you have a your logic for the view. So you will say post, and from the presenter you will get the tags and everything you need.
And so
we
won't
even need a presenter if we're already getting everything from post tags. Like, and I think it'd also like be good to kind of go over Rails, because this is a controller. How is this connected to the view and stuff? You know, does anybody want to go over how to go from the show controller method to the show view? Like, how does that work?
Parrish, Jesus, either one of you want to take
Well,
that?
the controller calls render view at the end of the action.
So at the end here, even so, that's one thing that's crazy about Rails is there's no, it doesn't say that anywhere.
Oh, well, okay. So like, yeah, it's on the, that's just how, like, Rails builds the routes and stuff for you. So if you go to like post/show, that's going to be the two instance variables that you're going to end up getting.
Yeah.
On your, like, when you try to do stuff with like ERB in there.
Okay.
So if you go to the views and then post and show, that should show you. See, it's got, and I don't think that one actually even uses the tags as an instance variable in it. I don't think we're using it there. We're actually using post.tags.
So we don't even need to instantiate tags.
Right, as a separate instance variable.
So cool. I mean, that's I guess an application in that, like, application of her rule is that we didn't even need it in the first place.
Right. So, okay, but she does say that object.collaborator.value is not allowed. I would guess that the object in this case would be the posts and the collaborator would be the tags, because tags are, they have a separate model and everything in the database. Is that the case, Jesus?
I'm not that familiar with the rules,
Okay.
but I found the other day a blog post. I will try to find it that talked about this.
So whenever we build a presenter in Rails, is that a separate class, or how does that work?
Yes, a presenter is a separate class you have to make.
Okay. So that might be a way to go to avoid having to, if we decided that the post.tags is an instance of object.collaborator, then using the presenter might be a way to get around that and not break her rules. And we're not far enough along yet where we know why those rules are going to burn us later. Like, we haven't none of us are, or at least I don't know that any of us are experienced enough yet to know why that's a problem. I mean, Farish and I just implemented them because we thought it would be convenient to have tags as an instance variable so that you know, whenever you needed to iterate through tags or whatever, it would be easier to just, you know, do tags. But there may be a problem there that would crop up later in our code base that we just aren't aware of because we either haven't gotten complicated enough with it or we just haven't gotten far enough along that we know that it's a pitfall waiting to happen. So I'm curious. I may ask around. I know some people too ask around on this kind of stuff. And when we come back next week, we might be ready to talk about that as far as like why, if this particular use case is a bad one, and if so, why. I think it's something we ought to try to find out. And maybe we'll get differing answers, and that would be even better, because if we get people who are further along than we are that disagree on it, we can have a real discussion. Let's see. Was there anything else in our code base right now that we know that we think breaks the rules? If we look at them here, I'm going to go ahead and post the rules on my share screen real quick so everybody's got them or can see them.
Yeah, I think the post and the tag are really kind of related. And if you look at the, this is the tags controller also pulls up tag and post, even though posts are pulled off of the tag object right here. I don't know, can people see that?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that if you look in the, yeah, okay, so yeah, you're looking at the tags controller, tags.posts ordered by, yeah, and then yeah, it does the exact same thing, just in the other direction.
Yeah. Wow.
Jesus is capturing us all for posterity.
The history books.
So I'm going to go ahead and, okay, so classes can be no longer than 100 lines of code. I don't think we've gotten anywhere close to that with any of our stuff. None of our stuff is complicated enough to have needed that to be an issue. And if it ever gets that close, I guess what we'll do is you just break it out into another class. You try to find something inside of that larger class that is doing enough of a kind of thing that you could break it out into its own class. Methods can be no longer than 5 lines of code. I don't think we break that rule yet, just because it's so easy and relative.
Clay, let me show you something. That gem works, and it's wonderful. Let me share my screen with you.
Okay.
And screen share. And
okay.
So there's this gem that I linked in here. It's called Sandy Meter, and then when you run it, it tells you. Let me make this larger. Where you went wrong. So, like, our classes are fine. The under 5 lines rule, we're okay most of the time.
Okay.
Our less than 4 params is perfect, and then here's our 1 instance variable. And I'm going to show you, if you go to details, it'll tell you, here's where you made your mistakes.
Yeah, sure enough. It catches the ones. So apparently, according to that, we are breaking the rule, at least as that website interprets it.
Right, with just mainly 2 methods, and
I think we know how to fix it too, though. That's the cool thing.
Right. So where? Let me find. Okay, so can you pull up in the code base where the methods are too large? Because I don't remember seeing those.
Here, I already have Vim open. Let me switch screen share.
And if you guys, we don't want to hijack.
Can you guys see my VIN?
Yeah, we don't want to hijack this whole conversation just to talk about using memory blocks. If you guys have something else in particular you want to talk about, we need to get to that too. I don't want to, but this is an actual example of some code base that we've been working on where we know we're breaking the rules. So let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, you know what? If the join tables
Oh, yeah,
correctly,
the create. Yeah, the create object, or the create method.
doesn't the create method look okay? Or am I looking at the wrong one?
Well, it's more than 5.
It's definitely more than 5 lines of code.
Well, you know what? That's just more of how to do one-line if statements.
So you guys think it's okay with sufficient?
Erish, I'm going to mute you if that's okay.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the create method is more than 5 lines of code, but obviously you could probably refactor that into, you know, something that would meet the rule, but then it would be the same thing, just like as a one-line if statement. Is that, I mean, is that break more rules as kind of making it illegible?
Yeah, I think that breaks the spirit of the rule.
Right.
I think the idea is to try to get away as much as possible without having to use a lot of if statements.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how. I'd have to look at that particular method for a little bit to figure out how to do that.
I kind of like that because I feel like that's why she was really hesitant to bringing rules in the first place.
Right.
Let's rephrase this a little bit. The if statement's okay, but there's ways to write one-line if statements.
Well, but yes, but is that more or less readable than what we have now? I mean, you'll want your code to be...
Because we're new, this is readable to us. If you look at some Rails code where they use one-line statements, it's like, oh, what does that mean? I'm not used to a one-line statement.
Yeah. I think we're already running into a situation where applying to the letter of her rules may be violating the spirit in our particular case just because of where we're at with our level of Ruby reading.
Right, and I think, and she also, in this first chapter is mostly theory, but she talks about it making it future-proof. So I think kind of not pushing it into a one-line if statement or something like that, or like refactoring it to where it fits, but kind of shoehorning it into where it fits, kind of goes against making it future-proof, because then it's harder for us to be like, well, why did we do that? You know, it's like we'll look back on it and not remember why, and then when we actually get to the point where we can address it in a better way and refactor it and put it in like a succinct method that makes a lot more sense, then we can do that then. But for now, it like makes sense and we can read it, so it makes sense for us to break that rule.
Well, and Jesus just gave an example. There's a respond to method that can make it an if statement into one line. It was the default for scaffolded controllers in 4.1, but then it was reverted into 4.2. So I don't know. I mean, no, is using, I guess, using a Rails method like that.
Let me share the screen again. I'm going to show you what I did. I knew I did it somewhere. This is from Upcase. This was my solution to a shorter if statement. This is an example of what I did.
Also, while you're getting that set up, just administratively, are we gonna like say to try to wrap this up around 11? Just trying to like get a schedule.
I mean, I don't think we need to go 2 hours the first time, do you? I mean, the first chapter is pretty straightforward. Okay. Maybe cut it off in another 30 minutes.
Okay.
But see how I simplified this? So if it's saved, it redirected to the root path and it did the notice there.
Okay.
I can't, let's see.
Do I need to make it larger?
Yep, I can see it. Thanks.
And I think, let's see, I don't know if there was anything else on this. No, that was it, but you can integrate the notice into the redirect line. So that might be part of what we need to learn how to do better.
To start taking advantage of the Rails methods that were given to us instead of trying to do it all in Ruby.
That's part of it, and also learning those Rails methods, because this is like, I've only done this maybe twice, I think, and I forget about it because I'm used to doing it the other way. Because I don't do that. I know I could do it this way, but I'm used to the other way, you know, in my head.
Hey, Susan, do you know, can you give us maybe in the chat what the respond to would look like in that?
Yeah. So you say respond with post like that. Then you say at the top of the controller respond HTML.
Okay. Now I have to go read Rails documentation, which I should have been doing anyway. Okay. So that's a good start on the rules, which actually the first chapter of the book, I was hoping that it would have, like, so she doesn't actually cover the rules as far as I know anywhere in the actual book. So like I said, I'm curious to see how that plays out in nuanced detail, because you know the rules are pretty short, and so to have a whole book built around these 4 rules without it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in long form. Let's see if there was anything else we haven't really covered. Has anybody had any employers who took the SLOC approach to code that wanted you to, that was judging the quality of your work based on the lines of code you were writing? I hope not. That seemed like an incredibly bad idea, but I can understand completely why. As somebody who didn't know anything about this a year ago, I might have thought that was a good way to measure. Let's see.
Well, it's also interesting that she kind of goes into that, but then she does set rules for lines of code. So.
Yeah, but I think the rules are, I don't know. I mean, if you listen to her talk about her rationale for why methods should be short, it's basically just the bigger the method, the harder it is to read and refactor. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to where if I start getting a method that's long, I'll start creating private methods that method calls. Mm-hmm.
Can I guys just show you something that I'm just kind of playing with, and you guys give me feedback?
Sure.
So, of kind of going along the lines of like the letter of the law and stuff, like making things more readable and following the rules to make it easier to read and understand. So here's our original code implementation, and then instead of that, and it follows the rules, but I don't know if it's necessarily more readable, you create another method called database save, and it's like a private method, like you're saying, and then you just kind of pull off those extra lines into another method. But I don't know if that makes it easier to read or understand or anything.
Right.
You know what?
That's basically been my approach. Go ahead.
Actually, I kind of refactored this code, but I need Jesus to verify. I think this is how we should have done it. Now that I'm seeing this, let me take over screen sharing. Let me screen share. And the way I think
Here, let me
it
stop
could
mine.
have done is see how I refactored that? Would that work, Jesus? The new post line.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it says, do this, or if that's not true, if it didn't say, basically render new instead.
Right. That's actually pretty readable too, so it doesn't, like, I don't think that's any less readable than what we had before.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it's not very standard to do it like this.
What was it? So, I wish we had somebody on here who had been doing Rails for 5 years, who could, or 10 years, who could. Well, or Jesus, you're by far our most experienced person here, Jesus. What would the standard method look like there? Can you give us a quick, like in the chat, what it would look like in the standard form?
Okay. So I will use a ternary condition. So I look this like this, condition, like that.
Oh yeah,
So
that's the ternary, isn't it?
yes.
Okay.
So with that you can get an if else in one line. If
Okay.
if that's what you are trying to do.
So I will.
So
Go ahead.
let me reshare my screen and see let's refactor that. So what you're basically saying is to do it, let me go, technically, would we still have the if there?
No, it would just
No.
be post.
Post save, right? Let me force this back up. I gotta learn how to delete lines better. And then this is the true, and this would be the false, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like that then?
No, you have to move the question mark off the save.
Yeah.
Because right now you're actually calling save question mark as like a Boolean method.
But see, I want to learn how to write it. I gotta, hold on. Okay.
And you have an extra end from the.
Here, let me go.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be proper standard then.
Do you feel like it's more readable? Do you guys feel like it's more readable?
It's not to me because I'm not used to the ternary operator, but I know a lot of people use it.
I'm used to the ternary operator, but I didn't think of it doing in a controller method.
I kind of like the first implementation better. I know it's more lines, but...
Yeah. I guess you could just use it anywhere where you have a standard if-else.
Well, you know what the rule in Ruby is? If it has less characters, go with that. And I think this technically has less characters. So we should technically go with this. Now, I wonder what happens if I run the meter. Does that show up?
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Let's see what pop.
Oh, did it regenerate the pages? Let me see if I can use the screen share.
Whoa.
Do you guys see this now? Or is it gone?
I got a frozen.
Here.
Got a frozen. Looks like it tried to throw your. Yeah.
Let me reshare. So if we go here now, we improved. Let's go into details. And now it's just a tag controller. The other method is okay. It fought past the rules.
Right. Well, so that's one way to go. Then we could use ternaries. Actually, I want to say that I was looking at GitHub has a like their own personal Ruby style guide, and I want to say, can't remember, they had a when to use and when not to use the ternary operator. Let me look up their style guide. Nothing's loading fast right now because I'm recording. Sorry. There we go. Ternary. Avoid the ternary operator. Here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Can you guys see me? My screen? It says avoid the ternary operator except in cases where all expressions are extremely trivial. However, do use the ternary operator over if, then, else, end constructs for single line conditionals. So don't do if else in a single line, which makes sense. If you're going to do if else, break it up into multiple lines. And then it gives a bad example. Result equals if some condition, then something else something else, end. Good equals some condition, ternary, true, false. See, use one expression per branch in a ternary operator. This also means that ternary operators must not be nested. Prefer if-else constructs in these cases. So, and that's a fairly standard Ruby style guide. I know when you start talking about style guides and people start talking about the style guides they recommend looking at for newbies, that one gets brought up pretty quickly.
I still don't get if what does our condition fall under?
Anything about it that's controversial.
Is our condition a good one or a bad one? The one that we implemented.
It was a good one. You talk about what I did in Vim?
Yeah, yeah.
That was a good one, and it actually passed the test by reducing the line of the controller. So with the ternary operator, that replaced the if-else statement.
Okay, cool.
Do you want me to put the code in the chat?
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Yeah, because I could get kind of more understanding. But I was kind of reading it as prefer ternary over if-else if it's one line.
Well, that's part of it too, is to make it one line through this.
So, like, yeah, if it's like a simple if-else statement, that would only, if it's just a simple if-else, where you don't have anything complicated going on inside of it, which I think this case, I don't think there's anything in here. It's a basic redirect if, otherwise, go here. So I don't know. I think it's fine for a ternary to be there. But I'm just now starting. Like, I didn't even know what a ternary operator was 2 weeks ago. So I'm just now starting to get an idea for when to use them and when not to use them.
Could you explain?
Cool.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sulu.
Oh, sorry, Kane. Could you just explain it quickly, what a ternary operator is?
Basically, a ternary operator is a true or false statement, which is kind of how if-else works. Because if the first statement's true in an if-else statement, you don't do the else part.
Yeah.
So if the first statement is false in an if-else statement, you do the other statement. That's basically if or else.
Yes.
So the ternary operator kind of replaces that. Let me get Vim up.
Yeah, can we see it see it in I or B or something, or?
I see. So it's a substitute for an if-else?
It can't be, or for other conditionals, basically.
Can I show it? Like, I guess to kind of learn to explain things.
Sure.
Yeah. Here, let me stop sharing. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys see. Can you see that?
Yes.
Where?
So here, turning operate like if the condition in the beginning is before the question mark is true, then it does the
First item before the colon.
Yeah. So then if you do false, 1, 2, it's gonna take a guess, and then 2. So it usually goes something like, just so I could write this, Boolean, and then there's a condition 1. That's how ternary works.
Okay.
But if you think of it, it is just another if-else statement, because that's what it is. It's a conditional statement.
So yeah, we could do this like true. Yeah. Do you guys know? Let me just try. If how did that one single line if-else? Maybe we shouldn't learn it because that was bad. Single line if-else statement, but yeah.
Oh, you mean the one I did originally?
Well, the one in the style guide that says it said bad, and I saw if-else, but I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Well, you can do. Well, technically, it's supposed to be bad, but you could do it.
But yeah, I guess going back to the book, I kind of feel like I like that we saw the actual implementation for our project and applied it to the book, because I feel like it puts a context to a lot of things. I mean, like even understanding the way Rails works, I think, you know, especially for everybody here, like, or especially me, and it's good to kind of go back to like, okay, what's happening, and how is, you know, objects, and you know, how does that work with each view and controller? I think is really cool. Yeah.
It looks like Clayton left. I guess his audio is dropping out. But yeah, I definitely think that's really neat that we're able to look at stuff that, you know, we've done and discussed, and been able to say, like, this doesn't work, or this does. I wonder what Angel will have to say about it on Monday.
Yeah.
Well, probably what we should do is start refactoring the code as we learn the guide, because there's so much still to go through. I've done the first 7 chapters before. There's actually more YouTube videos of me doing this book with Ruby newbies. So once we start going through each chapter, we can start looking at how we did the methods in each section and match to our Ruby Monday blog as we go through version 2.0.
Right. Yeah, but I think we have to make sure too that it is kind of like project agnostic, so we're not like biased towards Ruby Monday.
Right. Well, you know what? We can also pick another project.
That's true. I mean, I think it's definitely a good idea to do it on the Ruby Monday thing, since so many of us are doing that and we're actively trying to make it better. But I think we just have to be sensitive to the fact that people might not know what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
I actually have a whole project. Well, it's old in the sense that I did it 5 months ago. If people want to look at it, it's a little complex, and it's a big mess because I was figuring out how to do things. It was a project that was making like a meetup where they had GeoMap for Rails and geolocator and all that. And I would love just to play around and refactor it. And I know based on how I code back then, it's probably an utter mess. Oh, who's flying in?
I do think it would be important to have some type of implementation to kind of put a context to things. But yeah, it would be tough to do something that's not. Yeah, it'd be in a way that's not like singling people out or. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be. I think the Ruby Monday project does have the advantage of, because so many people here are working on it, we do have, that ability to talk about it and like show it, and a lot of people can get into the code base really quickly and easily. And it's also relatively simple from a code standpoint. I mean, like, it's not a complete mess because we've been refactoring it. We've had people working on it that know what they're doing. So, but I think it might be a good place to start, and then if another one comes up, we can switch. But I think we just have to be, like at the beginning of each group, just say, this is the code that we're looking at. This is what we're working on. This is the context. Here's the link to the Heroku app, and here's the link to the thing that Saran did, just so that people can get some more context, if that makes sense. But I do like kind of going through it. Although some of the chapters, I've only read up to chapter 4, but they do get more technical. So I don't know if we're going to be able to apply them as easily as like applying the 4 rules.
Well, as we learn it, we should be able to. But part of that is to understand the 4 rules. The other thing we can do is we can either look for an open source project that might be messy, or we can start a new project, something small, and use these rules to build it. That's the other thing we can do.
Yeah, I think it's however ambitious you guys want to be with it.
I think the easiest thing goes to what you were talking about in the sense of anticipation, and maybe sending links out. Like this is the meeting we're going to have. These are the concepts we're going to talk about, and then maybe that being kind of a way to even the playing field for people who are going to attend.
Yeah, I like that. And I think so. I don't know if I've shared this with everybody in the group, but Saran reached out to me after reading the channel where we were planning it, and she was saying, I've seen a lot of these groups kind of pop up, and in my experience, they fizzle out if they don't have one set time, which is why I was pushing that so hard this week. But so I think it looks like on the doodle poll that I sent out that this time works pretty well for the majority of people who responded. Do you guys want to keep it Thursday at 9 p.m. EST? And then if other people want to make hangout groups on the side, they can. But I think we just need to have like one each week. Obviously, these people here are biased towards this time,
Right.
but it looked like it was a time that worked for the majority. So do you think we can like say, chapter 2 next week, 9 o'clock Thursday?
I'm all for it.
Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah, I'm up for it too. Quick question for those who are in here: are any of you guys familiar with Brian Lamar and Ruby Newbies? He was the second podcast Saran did.
Not really.
Okay. When you get a chance, maybe listen to his podcast. Him and I are talking because he got hired by Block, and I originally got into this because I found him, and this is what led me to Code Newbies. I'm probably going to take over that domain and Slack channel. I want to kind of bring it in here, and then I'm not sure where to go with it. So he and I are talking about it tomorrow because nobody's basically stepped up for it.
Cool. So what are you thinking about, like integrating it with kind of the existing Ruby groups?
I don't know.
Still
I
up in
really
the
don't
air?
know. I have no clue. I knew it was kind of dying because he got hired by Block, had to move across country because he was in Florida, and he hadn't been on since this probably happened, I would say in April or even March. I have to take a look. And the environment has a lot of people in it, but it's very quiet. and he has a big following in there. So I don't know yet.
You should take that to Saran, because she was saying that, I mean, this Code Newbie group has, a couple months. Even since I've been here, it's grown by like 400 people, and I've only been here for like a few months. And she was saying that, Slack is a great platform for communication, but if it continues to grow, we'll need something that's like a platform specific for groups.
I think Gitter.
So I bet if you talk to her,
I will Gitter, the one free code camp, but I think Saran might hate Gitter. I hate Gitter. Uses that, and they're huge. They have, I think, I know, a few thousand people.
Yeah, I'm on free code camp, but I think I clicked on the chat button and then immediately X'd out because it was so confusing, or overwhelming. But yeah, I think you should definitely talk to her about it, because I bet she'll have some really good ideas about how to like integrate those two communities, especially if she knows him.
Yeah, she does. I
she's familiar with that community.
I should.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think she'd appreciate that a lot. Let's see. So, is anybody, Clayton? Do you want to host again next week, or does anybody else want to? I guess hosting is kind of just opening the Google. Well, okay.
I guess who has the strongest internet connection?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can do it next week if nobody else wants to. I'll get some questions together or whatnot. Hey, Clayton. Did you want to host next week, or did you want to hand it off to someone? No.
Take that as a yes.
Nope. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I think we need someone with an internet connection here.
Harish, you should do it.
Most likely, yes. Only thing I don't know with is next Thursday I might be at the Pasadena Girl Developer Group. So it's
Well, do you want to say you want to do it, and then if something comes up, you can pass it along? I'm open, so.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, just because I want to, it'd be nice to just have, make sure we get all this stuff done before we leave tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. So next week, Thursday at 9.
And last question, have any of you gone to a hackathon?
I have not.
I just want to know, do I not sleep? Is everybody just awake there for the whole weekend?
I'm sure it's different each time. Depends on the group.
I got an invite to the comedy one that's happening next Friday in Los Angeles, and it's like, wait a minute, you're talking about people not sleeping for the weekend, and I'm like, I'm old, I'm not up for that. So I don't know yet.
I'm sure that you have to ask them.
How old are you, Crash, if don't mind me asking?
43.
Oh, no.
That's still young.
It is still young.
100 years ago.
I've become younger physically because I started working out and all that. I've talked about that in the chat a lot. But man, I still like my nap times.
I'm 45, so.
I have a niece who's 6, and she loves naps. So
See?
I don't know if that's enough sufficient evidence to say that you're old.
Yep. Maybe.
Actually, speaking of hackathons, I invited some people to this book club from my Women Who Code chapter group, and one of them I thought was going to be here. I don't think she could make it, but she just won a hackathon she went to last week, and I was like super excited.
Whoa.
Hoping maybe we can talk about it, but but she's not here. Maybe next week.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the last comedy hackathon? Like the winner?
Yeah, the app, I can't think of its name. It's the one that does fake notifications and fills up your calendar.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty freaking funny. I mean, it's a lot of work for a joke, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I actually have an idea about doing the one where, like for dates, how to get out of a date. But I don't know if that's been done already and it's going to be rehashed.
Something that calls you or something.
Call you up, you press it, it calls you. But I heard that that works on Android, but it doesn't work on iPhone. So,
If this, then that has a do button for that, and I've used it twice this week, but not for dates, for meetings.
it's like, sorry, my dog's on fire.
I've got a phone call from a number in California. I should probably take this. Like I don't.
If you guys are like making apps and stuff, maybe we like see some implementation next week, I guess, that might exemplify a lot of the concepts that Sandy Metz is talking about, maybe. Like if you like, you know, it sounds like all these you guys are doing a lot of coding and stuff. For next week, maybe it'd be kind of cool to see actual, like, because like I like what we did today, and it'd be interesting to see some implementation of code that you guys are doing, and then being like, oh, by the way, this is how this works, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have anything that I'm page, but
I'm
if
actually
anybody else
going to do and I'm going to record it as a tutorial. My dad's website, I hate it. So I'm going to redo it in Rails.
Mm-hmm.
It's a WordPress site, but it's mainly for uploading courses and stuff like that. And it's terrible. He hates it. So I'm going to redo it in Rails. And then I'll try and apply what I can on this for that.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Michael Hartle's sample violates Sandy's rules.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's okay for when you're learning in the beginning and they're explaining reasons how to do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah.
I think it's interesting because, like, just reading, when I first started this book, I definitely knew a lot less than I know now, which is still very little. So, like, the first chapter, I was like, the first two chapters, I was like, oh my god, I don't know what any of this stuff means. Like, I don't know what a class is. I don't know what that is. Like, what are we doing? But now it makes sense. But I've had to reread it. I don't know. Apparently, you're supposed to read it like several times during your coding career, according to Sandy.
I totally agree. I read the book. Well, I haven't read the book, but I read I think the first 3 chapters about 3 months ago, and I just reread the first chapter last night, and it's amazing how much you pick up in just that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be really neat because I've been, especially with stuff like coding, I've been so hesitant to buy books for it because I'm like, well, everything changes so fast. Like, I don't want something in print that I'm going to spend $50 on. But this kind of seems...
Rails is more stable. iPhone programming, whenever you buy the book, look at the day you buy it because it's going to all change by September.
Right.
And that happened to me and made me quit programming the first time because I was on iOS 4. I wrote my first app that was in the App Store, and then iOS 5 got released, and I was lost again.
Yeah, that's why I'm not even trying to get into iOS for a little while.
I think Chapter 2 has a lot of implementation in it too.
It does.
And it's timeless. It's kind of like, in a sense, it's very, yeah, she uses Rails, but you can implement it with Java or whatever. So, yeah, I kind of like the idea that like it's money well spent, and that like it's stuff that, you know, it's about objects, and it explains it in a way to a beginner that makes sense, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I like how it's more of like, it's still theory, but it makes, I mean, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, it makes me feel better about investing in a book like this, definitely. When you can see, you know, when she's preaching about things being future-proof, it's like she writes that way too, which is really cool. Also, I'm pretty bummed because, like, so she's based out of Durham, North Carolina, at Duke University, and I went to Chapel Hill, which is down the road. And, like, I wish I had gotten into programming when I was in Chapel Hill. Maybe I could have, like, talked to her. But no, I'm not there.
I was going to say, her and Katrina Owen were supposed to release another book.
Yeah,
the 99 Bottles of Beer book.
Yeah, that was due out a few weeks ago. The first iteration, I guess. Like, yeah, I remember reading on her blog that it was due out a few weeks ago anyway. So hopefully any day soon.
Yeah, I think you can subscribe to their newsletter, and then they should be sending out updates on when that gets actually finalized for publication.
Hey, in terms of next week, I kind of have like a mentor that I'm working with, and he's kind of given me a homework to work on to implement certain applications in Rails. So I'll be practicing some of the stuff. If you guys want to pair, that's my handle is broadbytes.me on the Slack channel. So if you guys see me on or whatever, and you want to pair program on something, just let me know.
Okay.
Direct message me or something.
Are you going to school? Because you said mentor.
Yeah, no, I am old too, and so I don't really want to go back to school.
You look young, so it's okay.
No, 34, but